that one wrestler, that one guy or girl we think didn't get their due when they were in the ring or after they were done wrestling. So this week, I'm going to give you my thoughts on that as I break down my top 10 underrated wrestlers of all time.
Number 10, Stevie Richards.
If you wrote it down on paper, will a guy with a mullet, a half shirt, and some Daisy Dukes get over in front of that bloodthirsty ECW Philadelphia crowd? Probably say no, but Stevie Richards' wrestling ability got him over with those fans. He held multiple titles in various independent organizations over the years, and in WWE, he was a multiple time hardcore champion. I think that they could have done a little more, especially with the right to censor. I think either him or Bull Buchanan would have been a great face breakout from that team, but it seems like they just kept him in front of the crowd for so long that the heat just wore off, that the crowd wasn't, they were tired of hating these guys, that they just didn't care about him anymore. Um, I the one thing that I love about Stevie is that audacity to name every move a Stevie move. The super kick, a Stevie kick, the power bomb, a Stevie bomb, the Stevie salt. Everything he did, he named after himself, as if to say, hey, I do this move better than anybody else. I put my own name on it. And I just love that audacity, that braggadociousness. And that's why I think Stevie is just one of the most underrated guys in the business.
Number 9, Mike Awesome.
Mike Awesome had a great career over in Japan as the Gladiator, came to ECW and became the World Heavyweight Champion. But when he went to WCW, he was saddled with awful gimmicks. The Mike Awesome, the fat chick thriller, that 70s guy. He came over to WWE during the Invasion angle and just got lost in all those guys that came over during that. He himself said it was one of the worst times of his career. A guy that large, that athletic, he should have been a tremendous star in the big leagues, and they just didn't know how to market him for some odd reason. Um, I do agree with Joey Styles about the whole leaving ECW to WCW without losing the belt, doing it behind their backs. I think that was a little shady, but his in-ring ability cannot be disputed. He was an incredibly phenomenal performer. Whenever Joey is cutting that, it's during that ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view. Check out that match he has with Masato Tanaka on that pay-per-view. It's one of the best matches you'll ever see.
Number 8, John Kronus.
At 6'4" and 256 pounds, you wouldn't expect John Kronus to have the 450 as a finish, and a handspring back elbow as a signature, other springboard and high-flying moves in his repertoire, and he did them all so well. Mainly known as a tag specialist, first with Perry Saturn in the Eliminators, and then he tagged with one of his arch rivals during the Eliminators day in New Jack. He was just one of ECW's favorites, never went up to the big times really, and I think if you haven't ever seen Kronus wrestle, you're missing out. Just a fairly big guy with an incredibly athletic move set. Like I said, a heavyweight that moves like a cruiserweight. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. There are guys that do it, and Kronus is one of the best.
Number 7, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert.
A second-generation wrestler, Eddie Gilbert won many titles during the waning days of the territorial era. Known very well as a booker. He actually won Wrestling Observer Newsletter's Booker of the Year back in 1988, mainly in part due to the Battle of New Orleans story. Um, Eddie was always one of my favorites growing up. He was magic on the mic, and his wrestling, he wrestled like a true heel. He bumped like a heel, he acted like a heel in the ring. That's an art that is somehow sometimes lost in this new era. Eddie knew how to bump and overreact, act like it just was hurting him so bad because that's what we wanted to see. We wanted to see Hot Stuff get his comeuppance and get hurt in the ring. And he knew how to give that to us and make us very happy. He's just a phenomenal heel, and I loved him growing up.
Number 6, Louis Piccoli.
Louis Piccoli was an amazing wrestler. Uh, he was wrestled down AAA as Madonna's boyfriend. Was part of Los Gringos Locos alongside Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero. Um, when he came up to WWE, he was saddled with that ridiculous Rad Radford gimmick. I always look past a gimmick. I try to, at least. I get entertained by a gimmick, but when they get in the ring, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's supposed to be a rocker coming down. Now he's just a wrestler in the ring. What can he do? And I was always thoroughly entertained by his ring work. When he came to ECW, they really did give him a push, and the crowd really did enjoy him. Unfortunately, Louis suffered from substance abuse problems, and actually gotten himself clean until tragically his mom passed away, and he had a relapse, and he passed away shortly after that. Um, a lot of guys, Stevie Richards said they were great friends. Tommy Dreamer actually started using the Death Valley driver, referring to it as the Spicoli driver, which a lot of the WCW announcers started doing as well, since he was with the company at the time of his passing. Um, it's a shame we lose so many of those guys so young, and it just saddens me that that is sort of his legacy, instead of looking at his incredible ring work and just being amazed at the great wrestler that Louis was.
Number 5, Marty Jannetty.
When you're in a long-running tag team with the greatest of all time, it's easy to get overlooked. And that's what happens to Marty Jannetty. As one half of the Rockers with Shawn Michaels, they were the two-time AWA Tag Champs, and that familiarity led them to have a great match on Raw for the IC title that Pro Wrestling Illustrated named their Match of the Year back in 1993. Marty is a great wrestler. Unfortunately, he will forever be compared to and overshadowed by his former tag team partner, who is, in my humble opinion, the greatest of all time. But Marty is great as well, and should be given a lot of credit for what he could do in the ring.
Number 4, William Regal.
I went on at length about William Regal in my top 10 guys who should be in the Hall of Fame video. All the titles, the King of the Ring, his GM work back in the day, and now in NXT. The reason I put him on the underrated list is it seems that he's a wrestler's wrestler. The wrestlers love him. Hardcore fans love him. But those guys, those casual fans too hardcore, those guys in the middle, they don't seem to give Regal his due for his incredible ring work. The Regal stretch is actually an innovation of his. He created that move. The number of guys he trained and the greatness those guys went on to. Little side story I always share why I think that about certain fans. It was during Goldberg's incredible streak with a bunch of guys that were watching WCW Monday Nitro. They're huge Goldberg fans. He comes out of his locker room. They are just marking out hard. They're chanting along with the crowd. They're just going nuts. And that night, it's the infamous match between Regal and Gilbert. And Regal had been told, hey, Regal and Bill both had been told, hey, we don't want this to be a squash match. Can you go 8 minutes? And Regal tries his hardest and has a very hard time getting an 8-minute match out of a guy who they were grooming to be the next world champ, the next man of the company. And all these fans who are sitting watching this are saying, well, man, Regal's putting up a fight. Yeah, Bill usually takes him out. And by this time the curtain's been gone. I'm pretty smartened up, and I'm watching it thinking, Bill Goldberg sucks as a wrestler. William Regal is really good. We know this, and he is struggling to carry this guy through this match. And just being amongst those fans made me think, hey, Regal is a great wrestler. He's 100 times better than Bill Goldberg. And, but I didn't want to say that in front of all those guys for fear of my own life. But that seems to be a fan thing, is they don't look at Regal as being as great as he really is. And yeah, he's way underrated by the fans.
Number 3, Chris Candido.
Chris Candido was ahead of his time. He was an incredibly gifted, high-flying wrestler. And if all you know of him is that he was Sonny's husband, then you're missing out. You need to hunt down his work. He was an NWA World Champion, ECW Tag Champ, WWE Tag Champ, and WCW Cruiserweight Champ. And back in 1995, Wrestling Observer Newsletter named him their most underrated, which I totally agree with. He was so overlooked. He was just an incredibly gifted wrestler, way underrated on the mic. He had some great heel promo work in ECW and in a federation that I don't have much respect for, but XPW. He went over there, had a little run, and he cut some incredible promos during that time. You should check him out if you can, and check out his ring work. It is by far some of the best stuff you'll ever see.
Number 2, Bam Bam Bigelow.
Another entry from my Hall of Fame video. Bam Bam Bigelow was an amazing athlete. I gushed about him enough in that video, so I thought I'd bring in a quote from someone who could say it a lot better than I. Ryan Murphy, formerly of the WWE, had this to say about Bam Bam Bigelow, and I quote, "The most natural, agile, and physically remarkable big man of the past quarter century." End quote. There you have it. I can't say it any better, but I'll try. Bam Bam was amazing. If you haven't seen The Beast from the East in action, go hunt down some of his work. You'll be thoroughly entertained, and dare I say, you will instantly become a fan of his. Now, before we get to our number 1 pick, let's hit you with some honorable mentions.
Al Snow, Terry Taylor, Bobby Eaton. Number 1, Canyon.
Who better than Canyon? Whether he was a face or a heel, I was always saying nobody better than Canyon. If you watch a Canyon match today, you'll probably think to yourself, oh, he was a good wrestler. He had some great moments. I always say you need to watch him in context. You need to watch a Canyon match and the rest of an episode Nitro. You need to watch his match in the rest of the pay-per-view to really truly grasp how ahead of his time he was, how innovative he truly was, how he earned that nickname, the innovator of offense. The flatliner, his finish was actually created by him, and so many guys use it today. Mr. Anderson, so many different guys using variations of that, not only as a finish but as a setup move. Um, I just enjoy Canyon's work tremendously. I thought he truly was the Alliance, the Invasion's MVP. Um, he was one of those guys I thought would possibly get a chance in WWE to really shine where he hadn't in WCW. I was disappointed when he was let go from the company, and it seemed like he had some personal problems coming out of the closet and using that in the gimmick, and then saying it was that the coming out was a work, and then later on saying it wasn't. I think he was just a very confused guy. I feel very sorry for that, especially since he committed suicide. We have so many in the LGBT community that take their own lives because they feel like they don't belong, and I think Chris felt that way, which is sad because I have a place in my heart for him. I think he was a great wrestler and just entertained me every time he was in the ring. Just amazing talent that I think, like so many on this list, gone too soon. So there are my top 10 underrated wrestlers of all time. Tell me who you think are the most underrated in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe and give the show the thumbs up. If you would like us, go to facebook.com/the Family One Kickout and like the page there. You can follow me on Twitter at Festus74. And join us next time when I'll be giving you my previews and predictions on the upcoming WWE pay-per-view Battleground. Until next time, remember, when life has you pinned, always kick out.